You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 92, with Joel Boggess.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? Wally Carmichael here. Thank you for chiming in, and if you've been here for a while, thank you very much for hanging out and sharing this show with so many people. We are really gaining some momentum. I'm getting a lot of really cool comments on social media, email, phone calls. Really, really cool. I'm really digging it. If you're brand new to Men of Abundance, look, we're happy that you're here. We're here to prove that you can live a life of abundance. We're here to show you that there's more abundance in the world than even you may believe at this point in time. And we're going to show you how to gain some of that abundance and give abundance. It's a two-way street. Now, sometimes in your life, work, relationships, jobs, there's a point in time where you have to reevaluate what it is that you're doing. And you have to take inventory of what's working, what's not working, and sometimes it's time for a relaunch. That's what we're going to talk about today. Joel and I have a conversation about his relaunch, where he's taken it, what it means to him, and it started when he was 5 years old. And if you have kids, that part of the story is very heart-wrenching. You're going to be on the edge of your seat. But don't worry, guys, we're not going to leave you there. We're going to take you back into a high place, and we're going to show you and talk to you about relaunching your life, or at least seeing if that's where you're at in life and need to relaunch. Speaking of relaunch, my goodness, if you have any idea or if you currently have any sort of a business, thinking about starting a business, or you're stuck in your business, you absolutely must check out Freedom. It's Freedym. You can check out the details and actually get started for just $1 because I'm a member and I'm referring you since I'm telling you about Freedom. You can get started for just $1 by going to menofabundance.com/092. Scroll to the bottom, look for the Freedom logo, and click on the $1 trial link. I'll tell you just a little bit more in just a few minutes. So today we're having a conversation with Joel Boggess, and Joel is a speaker to call when your office, team, or organization is feeling stuck, under-challenged, or overwhelmed. Joel's most popular keynotes and workshop sessions include Never Give Up, 5 Steps to Empowerment, Meaning, and Impact, Triple Your Sales, The Unconventional Strategy for Unbelievable Results, and Find Your Voice, the 3-part path to clarity, confidence, and direction. His podcast, ReLaunch, which we'll talk about in just a minute, was named by Podcasters Paradise as the most inspirational 2 years in a row, 2014 and 15. It was also mentioned in Huffington Post as being one of the top 5 shows to tune into for inspiration. And it was mentioned in Inc. as one of the top 20 business podcasts in 2015. I can certainly go on and on about all of the accomplishments that Joel has accomplished thus far, but you can read about those in the show notes at menofabundance.com/092. Men of Abundance, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Joel Boggess. Joel, welcome to Men of Abundance, man. How you doing?
Wally, this is going to be so much fun. I've been looking forward to this interview all day long. And you know what? I started in radio, got behind the microphone, my gosh, 28 years ago. And with all of that experience and just show after show after show under my belt, I still don't take these invitations for granted. There are a lot of places right now that the Men of Abundance in your audience could be tuning into. And you know what? They made a choice to listen to the conversation between you and I take that very personally. And you know what, Wally? I know that you do too. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. There is no place that I'd rather be right now than here with you in the Men of Abundance.
I feel exactly the same way, Joel. So where are you in the world?
I am in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I live in a little bedroom community called North Richland Hills. If you've ever gone through the DFW airport, it's about 15, 20 miles from there, and it's in the the DFW metropolis, and there's about 7 million people here. So a lot of little small towns that make up a big town. And I've been here with my wife for, my gosh, almost 16 years.
Wonderful. Yeah, I have been through there, as a matter of fact, and I also have an aunt on my mother's side that lives there as well. So I've been around there a couple times.
Okay.
Joe, before we get too much into the show, I really like to start the show out the same way I start every single morning, which is with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today?
Sure. Boy, that's a great question. And you know what? I do pretty much the same thing when I wake up and I go into my studio. My wife's still sleeping. And I just am so thankful, and I give thanks for having the strength to get up and face another day, for having a protective covering, a spiritual protective covering over my house, over my family, over my wife, and also over our businesses. And I'm just grateful to have the opportunity every day, as I know you are too, to grow the business, to grow the family, to grow relationships, and to make an impact in someone else's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely love it. And we're going to talk about some of those businesses and the stuff that you do. But here on Men of Abundance, one of the things that we really like to do is to get to know the man behind the abundance and the man behind the greatness. So I gave a brief bio, but a lot of that was, kind of some of your, what you got going on type of stuff. Before we got started here, I would like to get to know you a little bit more personal. So let's do that. Let's get a little bit personal.
Sure. I tell the story often of what happened when I was 5 years old, and it was on January 29th. It was a Sunday afternoon, and a 5-year-old boy, his dad, and some family friends were off on a nature hike in the middle of the Texas Hill Country. And as the day stretched on, the little boy and two older kids kind of drifted away from the pack, and they ended up climbing a small hill, and running parallel to that hill was what looked like, through the eyes of a child, a jungle gym. And this little 5-year-old boy did what any kid would do. He climbed to the top of it, ran to the middle, and laid down on his stomach and peered over the edge and called down to his dad and the adults below. And the thing was, Wally, this wasn't a set of monkey bars. This was actually a railroad bridge that stretched over a wide gorge. And as the train approached on the boy's right side, face down on his stomach, right side, his dad scrambled as fast as he could up the hill trying to reach his son. And by the time he got there, it was too late. And that boy, me, fell 30 feet to the ground, and then I lay just seconds later motionless on the rocks. And as my dad ran down fast as he could, and hoped and prayed that he could find a pulse, thankfully he found one. And by the time the rescuers found us in the middle of the Texas Hill Country, no GPS, no cell phone, 42 years ago, they were able to revive me from that near-death experience. And Wally, I tell that story because that's pretty much where it all started for me. That's where the relaunch in my life happened, or started, I should say. That's where the relaunch in my parents' life happened, because they were still reeling from a divorce between those two. So they were now single parents. And that's just where a lot of things happened. As a result of that accident that resulted in 3 skull fractures and a coma, but also when I woke up at age 6, which is when I had to go through a relearning as well as a relaunching process, relearning how to think, how to talk, how to balance myself. And that event, as you can imagine, had a significant impact on the way I thought about myself and in the way my parents responded to each other and to me.
Yeah, wow, that's one hell of a story, I'll tell you. And as you were mentioning, saying that story, as you were sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing that with us, seriously. Sure. I think of any of my 3 boys, and I got a 7-year-old right now who I know they get away from you super fast, and they're just so inquisitive, and especially my 7-year-old having the other 2 older brothers. He is fearless, literally fearless. I mean, we live on the beach. He will be out on the surfboard before I even know what the heck happened. I couldn't imagine that. And I can see how that really took you into this whole relaunch idea. And I really want to get into that relaunch idea. Normally right now in the show, we would kind of get into that kick in the gut moment. But I kind of take that as a kick in the gut moment, unless you have something else that you would like to share that really kind of pushed you in your adult life and coming up with this idea of not just the relaunch moment, but you also give quite a few speeches and keynote speaking on never giving up.
Yes.
You've got your 5 steps to empowerment, meaning, and impact. You've got your, triple your sales, and, you get into all the sales stuff and everything, and then finding your voice. That's really, I take all of that stuff I take very personally, and I'm finding my voice right now through this podcast and other mediums. But what I'd like to do is either get into the kick in the gut moment that launched you into that process, or sure, we can just, move on.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your service, serving in the United States military. I take that very personal. I also take very personal the fact that you were a medic, at least for a period of time when you were in the service, because it was the rescuers that showed up that had that desire and that passion to never give up. And you can appreciate this because you're a medic, but I had so much blood loss that by the time the rescuers were at my side, they couldn't even find a vein because all the blood vessels had collapsed. But thankfully, Wally, they pressed on. And the reason that they pressed on, there's one reason that they pressed on, and one resource that helped them to make that decision, and it was their faith. And what I mean by that is they had faith in their training. They sat through the classes. They sat through the lectures. They had faith in their instincts, just like you have instincts. And the men of abundance that are listening today have instincts, maybe some instincts they haven't even tapped into yet. And they also had faith that they were contributing to a greater good, that there was a cause to their actions. And I don't know what their spiritual beliefs were or what they believed in. And frankly, I never knew because I never met them, but they believed in something bigger than themselves. And that is what I talk about sometimes when I'm on the platform and when I'm speaking to men about never giving up and just how important it is, and how we also have a responsibility to ourselves, but also to others, to continue to press on no matter what. And thankfully, they did for me at that moment of truth, and that's why you and I are able to have this conversation 42 years later.
You're absolutely correct. And being a medic as long as I was, and I've been in those situations with patients, and children. Number one, I learned are very resilient. Children tend to bounce back super quick. So we always learn that, and we do everything that we possibly can. But to take that into a different avenue, a different approach in our lives for those who are not medics and are not in that situation, it's just like we was talking before the show. When, somebody asks me for assistance in, anything in life that I have expertise in, living a life of abundance, or showing them how to, possibly start a podcast or something like that, I kind of take that, I take that very personally, because I know when I say yes, then I've got work to do. And it's the same when you're on stage. When you're out there on stage and you're talking to people, you have a vested interest in everybody that you're talking to, because they are listening to you and hanging on to every word. And then I want them to go apply that and not give up on themselves. That's the hard part for me. I would like to know how you feel about that, because I know not everybody you talk to follows through with your ideas and suggestions that you might give them. I find it hard because I'm like, goodness gracious, man, this person is reaching out for help, and I'm giving them what I believe will help them, and you're doing the same thing. And then when they start falling off and starting to give up, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think one of the main reasons, not the main reason, but one of the main reasons that people give up is because they commit too early. And, and I'm no superhero, Wally. I do that too, commit too easily. Because it's easy to say yes. It's easy to get caught up in the emotion, when you're at a meeting or when you're on a phone call. And you want to be liked and you want to be agreeable. So, you say yes. And unfortunately, in our society, it's become, pretty much expected that people will say yes. But for men of abundance, you've got to really think about, okay, is this really something that's going to contribute to me, to my family, and to the greater good? And is it also something that I'm excited or passionate about? Because when you commit, that's when the work begins. So how do we make sense out of all this? Well, we really have to take some time to make sure that our commitments are few, but they're meaningful.
Yeah, that's powerful. I like that. And you're absolutely right, because the way I design my lifestyle is I always want to be able to have the time to do the things with my family that I want to do. I never want to put myself into a position to where I don't have time to live my life the way I want to live my life. And part of that is helping other people and, doing my job and doing a great job at what I do, and then still having time to do other things. I'm not that super 100% hustle type of guy. I'm not working for a dollar. I'm not working to be loved and liked by everybody. And sometimes we have to say no, because, as I've heard many times before, when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to many other things, just inherently, because it's going to take up all your time to do that.
Well, if you're able to keep your commitments on a quality level and limited, then you don't fall into the second trap of giving up, and that is overcomplicating things. And we all can relate with that. And again, I'm no superhero, because I've made a mess of many things by making them too complicated. But if we do what we can to keep things simple in our lives, then exactly.
I love that.
Then we have
absolutely.
more energy to follow through on our commitment. And when we follow through on our commitment, we are stronger as men, and we're seen stronger by other people, especially those under our own roof.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is ReLaunch? What is your podcast? I like your podcast, but I want to hear from you. What is ReLaunch? ReLaunch starting over with confidence. And I'd love to hear a good news story that's come out of that so far.
Yeah, thank you for asking me about the podcast, by the way. And we are just having a blast with it. We're at 1.7 million downloads so far. For me, that's a big number. So I'm pretty jazzed about that. And we've done 558 episodes, and it has been one of the best things that I've done for myself from a business standpoint, and also from a relational standpoint. Because if you haven't noticed this yet, Wally, and I'm sure you have, but podcasting is the new networking. And it's amazing the things that can happen when you have a guy on your podcast. And I've had on pretty much the who's who in the speaking and the personal development world, like Darren Hardy, the former publisher of Success Magazine, Jack Canfield wrote a little book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is now at about 500 million copies. That's a lot. And on and on and on. And I wouldn't know these guys and be friends with a lot of them if I hadn't invited them on my podcast. And so relationally, it has been one of the best things that I've done. It beats going to cocktail parties. Let me tell you that. And from a business point of view, a business standpoint rather, it has helped me get on stages. It has helped me earn business. It has helped me have opportunities to speak that I never would have had had I not had a podcast. And ReLaunch seemed to be the perfect title for us. And what ReLaunch is well, we all know how it. We all understand launching something, launching a career, launching a business, launching a book, launching a relationship. But relaunch is when you're ready to do it again and take the lessons that you've learned from maybe a failed business venture, maybe a relationship that went up in smoke, maybe a career or a lifestyle that just kind of didn't work out for you. Mm-hmm. And and then how you're able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and relaunch into a life of abundance. And I tell the story of Canfield, and Jack lost everything in his divorce except his bootstraps. And while he is living in abundance right now, he had nothing. I mean, he had his underwear and his boots, and that's about it. And he moved forward anyways. He pressed on. He didn't give up because he knew two things. It was worth it, and he was worth it. And if you take that and really meditate on those words, or if meditate kind of doesn't work for you, if that word is a little too woo-woo for you, if you really contemplate and concentrate on those words, of the words of your worth and the thing being worth it, then, boy, a lot of things are possible when you start to believe that.
Absolutely, and that's right exactly in line with what we're doing here at Men of Abundance, and I thank you so much for pointing that out and sharing that, because
Sure.
of course I know who Jack Canfield is and I've read the book, but the insights that you have take it so much further. And on the subject of meditating on the words, and some people think of that as kind of woo-woo, and I point out recently to somebody who said, the Bible says you should meditate. Well, the Bible mentions multiple times to meditate on the words of Jesus Christ. So, if you want to go that route, and I just wanted to point that out there. I know we're short on time, Joel, and I want to respect your time. But I'd love to continue on this conversation, and I'm sure we will at another time for sure, without a doubt, because we're definitely connecting. And I would love to pay it forward to our abundant leaders at this time. You ready?
Absolutely.
Outstanding. Hey, man, here at Men of Abundance, I'm really big on living your life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness. And we have all of these discussions. But one of the things that we've been talking about lately is improving and increasing your finances. And there are so many reasons for that I'm not going to get into today. But we're always talking about why it's important and a few ideas about how you can do that. But I've never really shared the nuts and bolts about exactly what to do and how to do it. So today, right now, I'm going to share with you one of the resources that I personally use that keeps me on track and up to date with all the latest trends and everything about my personal business. And if you have a business and are struggling at this point or thinking about starting a business, this is a resource that you absolutely must get your hands on. I am talking about a membership site called Freedom. It's spelled Freedym. This is the Netflix for entrepreneurs, because I can't even tell you how many videos are in here for you to learn from. Everything to have to do with entrepreneurship, motivation, personal growth, marketing, money, lifestyle, membership sites, you name it. Everything you need to get started is right here. And since I'm a member, you can get started for just $1. The way to do that and to get to that link is to go to menofabundance.com, click on the resources tab at the top of the page, and scroll down, and you will see the Freedom logo, Freedym. Click on that, take a look, see everything that they have, and get started for just $1 and get inside. You're going to be blown away at how much information is in there. I'm loving it. I'm using it, and it is greatly assisting me in building my side hustle and building my membership site. So right after this conversation, go to the resources tab at menofabundance.com and go check it out. All right, let's get back to the conversation. So give our abundant leaders 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
Sure. First thing that you do every day. Now, it didn't have to be the first thing, like before you have your coffee and all that, but start to journal. Use a gratitude journal. Start just listing off some things that you're grateful for. And this is just for your eyes. So it doesn't have to be complete sentences. It doesn't have to be grammar checked. It doesn't even have to make sense. But as long as it makes sense to you, things that you are grateful for. And then, what do you expect of today? If you don't expect much, you won't get much. So you've got to be expectant on what is coming this day. Expectant in the positive light. The opportunities, the connections, the relationship, the business that's coming in. And you need to commit those to writing as well. And then you need to take action. You need to take massive action. That's the third point. And everyone's situation is different, and everyone is in a different season of life right now. So the action that one person needs to take might be completely different than the action that the other person needs to take. But you have to take action if you want to move into a life of abundance. And one of the things that I say from time to time, because people ask me, well, Joel, what should I do next? And I'm sure they ask you that too, or some version of that question. It's like, well, gosh, what do I do next? Or what do I do now? Or what's my first step? It's very simple, Wally, and I really hope this resonates with the Men of Abundance. And I appreciate you having me on your show. And it's this. Your next step is the step that you are willing to take. And that's as simply as I can put that. Like, for instance, if you have a dream and a desire to write a book, which I know you do, Wally, well, your next step could be going to the bookstore and buying or borrowing a book on writing a book. That could be your next step. Your next step might be opening a Google Doc and just starting to freestyle write. That might be too scary for some people, which is fine, but, they might be willing to go to the bookstore and to just skim over a book. Stephen King's book on writing is phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a good book.
So it's not, well, what is the next step? It's, well, what is my next step?
Very powerful. Absolutely love it. What daily habits, other than giving thanks and being grateful, one of the first things in the morning you already mentioned, what other habits make up the biggest impact in your life?
I work out practically every day. Today, we're recording this on a Friday. I woke up and I worked out at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm one of those crazy people. I'm there when the door unlocks. And, I had 6 workouts this week. I'll take tomorrow off. And that right there, the workout itself, is one of the best things that I do. I actually consider that as being part of my business plan, my workout. Now, if you haven't yet started working out, okay, your next step could be, well, let me go see what kind of tennis shoes might be, worth investing in. Or let me go see if I can find a pair of shorts, or maybe get a pair of shorts at Walmart. See, your first step doesn't have to be, well, I'm going to go run 5 miles. It can be a baby step. But that's something that I firmly believe in, the power of movement and getting your body moving, and that releases all kinds of creativity. It annoys my wife, though, because I'll come home and I'll say, honey, let me tell you about these 10 ideas that I came up with while I was at the gym. And then she'll roll her eyes, because what that means is, okay, great, more work for me to do. Wonderful.
Yeah, and talking about working out, I seem to remember you posting your new abs coming in a couple weeks back.
Yeah, the six-pack's coming in.
Yeah, love it.
You know what, Wally, I was at 25, I was at 223. And the last time I weighed myself, I think I was 145. And if you do the math, that's about 80 pounds. And I'm 48. I just turned 48. So it is possible as long as you never give up.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. What are you reading or listening to right now that you would recommend to our Men of Abundance, and why?
Last couple of books that I've read are Steal the Show, which is a phenomenal book. Michael Port is the answer, or is the author rather. And that is a book on people and presentations, perfecting your speaking ability. And then I read another book called The Wealthy Speaker. And this one was actually The Wealthy Speaker 2.0. And Jane Atkinson, another friend of mine, wrote that book. Both of those two people are my speaking coaches, and they are phenomenal. And those are awesome podcasts to listen to as well. Steal the Show and Wealthy Speaker 2.0 are it's on my must-listen list. My must-listen list.
I will have those. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and my wife just bought me a new Bible about 2 weeks ago, Rainbow Study Bible, so I'm deep in that as well.
Nice. And I'll have those linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com. So I have one last question for you, Joel, and that is, sure. What does living a life of abundance mean to you?
Living a life of abundance, and that is a very deep question, actually. It's being happy with your life and with what you're doing and how you're spending your time. And I think it's also being satisfied with the work that you put in to a thing. I don't think it's overworking, but I think it's being satisfied with putting in a full day in your job, in your project, in your activity. God said that you should be satisfied with your hard work because it is a gift from me to you. Mm-hmm. And that scripture goes a lot deeper than probably what I can comprehend. But in my mind, that means that put in your effort, go all in, and do what you can, everything that you can, and I'll do what I need to do.
Excellent. Yeah, I just posted the other day that you do everything the way you do anything. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, I love that. So we're going to close this up. Joel, I appreciate your time, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. Before I let you go, leave us with a parting piece of guidance and any other way that we can get in contact with you. I will have the ReLaunch Show, ReLaunchShow.com linked up in the show notes, but any other ways that you want to share, go ahead and share it.
Absolutely. One of my mentors, Joe Calloway, wrote a fantastic book called Becoming a Category of One. And Joe told me years ago, he said, when you reach out and ask people for help, don't be cute, be clear. 100% clear. And that has brought business my way. When I've been clear with how I want people to help me, what I want people to say about me. If I want people to email their list, to ask people to buy my book or to, do this or do that, be clear. Don't hope that they'll figure out what you're trying to talk about, but be clear. And that right there, that's a seminar in a sentence right there. Don't be cute, be clear. And that has done so many wonderful things for me, just following that advice. The best thing that I can ask anyone to do is just sample our podcast. It's relaunchshow.com/subscribe. You go right to the subscription page. You can subscribe on any device under the sun, an Android, an iPhone, a tablet. All the options are right there on that page. And just sample a show or two and see if it's something that adds value to your life. And if it is, then I ask that you just subscribe to the podcast and just enjoy those gifts on me. And if we ever connect, if there's something I can do to help you out, that's great. But I think the best thing that anyone can do is just sample the podcast, and if it's for you, then enjoy the shows. And if it's a show that, for whatever reason, doesn't add value to you, then that's no problem. Then find a show that does, like this one, like Men of Abundance, that does pack even more punch into your life.
Nice. Absolutely beautiful. And I like the page, how you got it set up with everything there. Joel, again, I truly appreciate your time, man, and enjoyed this conversation. You shared so much wonderful stuff with us, especially that last parting piece of guidance. You're right. That could be a seminar in itself, most definitely. So there's a lot to add on to that. And at this point, we will call it a show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Wally.
All right, aloha. All right, guys, that is another amazing conversation. I took a lot away from that. I hope you got a lot out of it as well. The bottom line is this. Sometimes, like I said in the beginning, it is time for you to take inventory of what you're doing and see if it's time for at least maybe even just a partial relaunch in some part of your life. Many of us do that as entrepreneurs. We start off on one direction, even staying in the same industry, and realize, you know what, this is taking a whole different direction, just like I have with Men of Abundance. I started off on a particular mission. I had my thought process in mind. I knew what I was doing it for. And here we are, just about 1 year in and almost 100 episodes. 4th of July is that 1 year anniversary for Men of Abundance. And we are almost at 100 episodes. It just blows my mind. But where Men of Abundance has ended up is not where I originally planned. So I've taken a couple relaunches along the way, little mini relaunches, if you will. I guess you could say I kind of stayed on the same trajectory. Is that how you say that? Trajectory? But I took a different path. I've taken a couple different paths. I've veered off one way or another. And chances are you're going to be doing that in your life somewhere along the way as well. Now, if you got anything out of this conversation, please be abundant in your life today by simply sharing this with another man, sharing this with other people on your social media, email, whatever, and leaving a rating and review on iTunes if you haven't done so already. Truly, truly appreciated. Now go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.